단지 개가 아니에요. 진짜. 아, 양들은 사원을 지내는 것이 양도다 되고. 야, 다마저 대 양대 제 다추 천년제서 여러 가지는 레선에 추 천년제서 이제 그거를 지라바대야 소소만의 지시나지 是강나강对这있잖아요. 소소 만에 겨서 뭐 예비 제가 가르쳐서 손나지 통만 나로 소소랑을 봐라려야나 다 나로게 지 전부 나게 봐지 신주로지 정해야나 다다발지 소소이지 요나 야버지 요나서 이 몇장 가서 가서 제시한다 단 대인세지 개면 대스게 맞죠 세치로 하나 다 가르쳐지 이제는 서비 신주로지 저야나 당연히지 선바들 시대도 오지 선바들은 좋아지 방토야나 근데 몽고 쉬우지 되게 다 강에 몽고지 되고 저윤사를 상해지기 천하도 지레 투사래 왜 상해지다 맞아 은혜 연구해야도다.
So we are in the fence of receiving the teachings, or in other words, we're being on the venue of receiving the teachings of the Dharma, in which we are comparatively fortunate to be able to be a part of receiving such a precious teachings of the Dharma. So why we would think ourselves as a comparatively fortunate? It's because if we were to reflect very carefully that what we have done in the past, we did everything that we could to be a happy life, to have a happy life, to be a happy person. However, we do not really recall that we have really achieved the happiness that we long to achieve. So what happened with that? Why this is happening? As we put in a lot of effort to be happy and do something that makes us happy, but why this is not happening? Why we are unable to achieve the state of happiness that we long to achieve? So it is because now not being able to, transform our mind, not being able to, modify our way of thinking. That is the one thing that contributes us of not prevents us from, in other words, achieving happiness that we long to achieve. So therefore, now it is a time for us, as listening to the teachings of the Dharma, is to really to make some kind of change. It should bring some kind of change within one's mind. It is from that then we will begin to experience some level of happiness, although that we may not be able to achieve the happiness that we long to achieve, but there's a certain extent of happiness that we may be able to achieve. If it is only if one is able to be able to change, make a little change of one's mind.
베베긴 나와 제나다 단다 상한다와데 나와 심하제 단다 달로 나와 인사제 말아 되면은 단다 먼저 근데 내대대부터 쓰잖아 근데 상한다와 제제는 뭐지 대리 상한다와 저거 정을로 나서 베비치 제와이나 나와 기도 해나요 뭐지 때 나쪽에 단다 내대대부터 제가 제와이나 대리 기고에나 한번 가지 던지게 돼서 좀 뭐지 기대셔 나쪽에 다 매게 자체다 다 로지 돈에 시와이나 뭐네 산재단 저가 실체에다 배데 내대대부 실체와 예절상 대모에 따져는 지로 대체와이나 맞죠 되는지 만족해도 되잖아 아니 사와다 저거 정한다고 지라 기비 소리 지야도와
So in the month of Sakadao, which we are all familiar with. So the Sakadao month, according to Tibetan calendar, lunar calendar, it falls next month. But according to the Theravadan traditions, this is the month of Sakadawa, the Vesak day. So it is very fortunate that we are all being able to engage our body, speech, and mind in the practice of Dharma in such a important month. So this is a month, the Sakadawa month. Month is something that is considered as the most holy and important months accepted by all the Buddhist practitioners who follows the Buddhist teachings. So now, with this in our mind, let's visualize Buddha Shakyamuni in the form of Nirmanakaya, an emanation body, and who is then surrounded by the great Mahasiddhas, the 80 great Mahasiddhas, and other great masters, great Indian masters such as Nagarjuna, Asanga, Dignaga, and so forth. And then also visualizing the great Tibetan masters, including Lama Tsongkhapa and lineage gurus of Lam Rim. So then imagining yourself being in their presence, surrounded by all other sentient beings, that you're entrusting your entire spiritual practice to those beings, and just from the depth of one's heart, one must take refuge in them, and that other than all those beings, I have any other refuge to whom I can rely, and trust as my refuge. And so as you have cultivated a fervent devotions and faith to those visualized object of refuge, and imagining that so other sentient beings who are in your surroundings are also having a similar wish of taking refuge and those visualized object of refuge. And then try to imagine that all beings who are sentient beings who are undergoing tremendous amount of sufferings, and think of how wonderful it would be if I can, take this responsibility to overcome the suffering of all the sentient beings. With this, visualizations, one cultivates faith as well as compassion towards all other sentient beings. And take it 2 minutes, couple of minutes to meditate. With these motivations, we are then receiving the teachings, which is known as the light of three worlds, or the lamp of three worlds, the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, Chanchup Lam Rimpoche. This teaching begins with 4 major outlines, as usual. The greatness of the authors given in order to show the teachings as noble source, showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings, and how to listen to the teachings in which the both teachings and its author are great, and the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions. So if we were to ask the question, I wanted to practice Buddha Dharma, how do I begin? What is the proper way of taking starting myself to become a practitioner of the Dharma? And the answer to this question is that first of all, one must seek a qualified teacher who can teach you unmistaken Dharma, and then follow their instructions. Teba Chimba Chilla Lozi Dang Chiba do Doji Teba Lozi, Tatombola Song, Shansen Jilaba Landa Jama Jane Jesse Dambazon, Zone Chetani Bisu, Tatomani Lita, Zone Chetani Bisula Song, Kala Lobije, Delabana Dizzi, Della Lobby Baj, Tatomani Lita, Tatella Lobby Balani, Shuba Chilla Lozi Dang, Chiba de Pasha Tamanilla Lozi, Tatomani Lita, Tapasha Tamanilla Lozilla.
중앙에 있어. 맞지. 신나도劳动게 돼. 대니 등에 지금 등에 지금 되지 되봐. 신나도劳动뭐 대니가 방법이 진짜 고랭에 뭐 소소라 주의시. 아마도 타마 네. 想去一三节呢，发现他们的老头隔壁那个呢，现在老头这点看都点的越少。
So we're on the particular teaching, the chapter of teachings on this, the serenity inside, having received the teachings on how to cultivate bodhicitta.
哎呀，他顶着一上去一三节呢，那种，上节个啥人做过位呢？上节啥人做谁的看着的啥呢？原点他行吧，就是个了。原点他行吧，谁的三节原点他行吧，三节原点他行吧用完了，三个那当地也不过了啊，这里看图些呢。
So now the main purpose of receiving the teachings of the Buddha Dharma and practicing the Dharma is to achieve state of enlightenment, right? We are all, this is our common goal of one's own achievement of state of enlightenment. So now how do we achieve state of enlightenment? How do we venture ourselves to the state of enlightenment? Is to perfecting one's quality. In other words, perfecting one's inner quality. In order to perfect one's inner quality, one should first stabilize one's mind, and one's mind must be situated in a very conducive environment. This will then be able to begin oneself to venture on the path to state of enlightenment.
这个国家现在变成三角上是越是要弄了，शेजा थांची सेट हुआ जी गोरे ता पेन मेलो न लो ले शेजा थांची से जोने शावा न ये ने माजो सेजे रांजे यूएस ये ने ने जोशो जोने नाची बा जो छु थांची मिगे तावा न सेट हुए जी यो ये बेजन यो तादा ला सिने दुबो गो.
So the reason why it is important to practice meditative serenity or shamatha or calm abiding is because our nature of our mind is luminous, the luminosity of our mind. So therefore, in order for entire phenomena, without exceptions, can be reflected within the luminous mind, which is one's own nature of one's mind. And if one is able to, if all those phenomena are reflected, without exception, reflected within the nature of one's mind, within the luminosity of one's mind, then one is said to be achieved state of enlightenment. So this is what is meant by Sang, Tibetan term for the Buddha Sangye, right? So what is meant by Sang is to, if you speak lucidly, it is just to clear the darkness. So if one is able to clear the darkness, then you'll be able to see what is behind this, right? What is behind the darkness. Without clearing the darkness between yourself and an object that is behind the darkness, you'll not be able to see it. So by clearing that darkness, one will be able to see the object that is behind. So we're on that particular chapters actually of dealing with the laxity and excitement. But if you were to go back a little bit, or the last, which is page 55, that we have already gone through that last during our previous teachings. Page 55, it's the last. It's a second last paragraph, not all paragraph, but it's beginning from the second sentence. If it is hard for you to forget the object, you can quickly notice laxity and excitement. It does not matter. The session is little wrong. This is the idea behind Kamala Shila's statement about the duration of session is definite, 24 minutes and so forth. It is short since the duration has a comport with your mental capacity.
这记录下面到那些，这不要不短的。
那说。
的到那些短的讲呢，到那些的，他给把说好像差不多点得多啊。
那说。
到那让给录音，你把它点过呗，几岁你把这些的写上吧，演弄这样，流动生了老不，所以你把马上呢，你把叫了，说呢，无处写的没讲吧，点嘛他家呢，看着把这写的讲吧呢。 开把那就公把一边，在他写吧，听几张一把都讲比，原来的写吧下午送多的。
Awesome. So then here, if temporary injury to your mind or body does not occur, set your mind in equipoise. If such injury does occur, do not persist in meditating, but immediately stop your sessions and then clear away the impediments in your mental and physical constituents, then meditate. This is the adept's intended. So recognize that doing this in aspect of how long a meditation session should be.
对，写吧下我解，说嘛，没把代表我的解答下我了，你选个就有就是解答下我当，选个当这有就是解答下我当不了你送的。 那个嘛，录音的差不多。
That's all. So here now, how to we are on the dealing with the laxity and excitement, which begins from how to do after you focus on an object of meditation. This has two sections: what to do when laxity and excitement occurs, what to do when laxity and excitement are absent. What to do when laxity and excitement occurs. This has two parts.
你这，他现在我们这边你不担保当，我现在的我们学的们这边你不担保，担保了你现在就参你担了不当，刚比就是这都比先前这边套说，担保各方面跟来的来说的。
So then here it says, using the remedy for failing to recognize laxity and excitement. Second, using the remedy for failing to try to eliminate them, even when they are recognized. Using the remedy for failing recognize laxity and excitement. This has two sections. The first, the defining characteristic of laxity and excitement, and second, the method for developing vigilance and recognizing them during the meditations. The defining characters of laxity and excitement.
对，这个长大之后嘛，对呢，看着老玩噻呢，我这什么没把代表我的噻，本来顶个子了，两把下去没忙了，你选个中的没中的大个来似的。 对呢，给这点人啊，做一个了，年把我帮的细节是的，年把俺一弄了，你顶个子专门的年把第一次呢，你年把点把的年把几，你顶个子了，选个特别高了，年把没点把的，你年把几的生意的，你顶个子了，年把下去别忙了，你年把点的没点些，你提给这的。
So this is what to do after you focus on object of meditations. You know, it is to really to recognize the laxity and excitement when you are actually, focusing on object of meditations. And when should you apply the object? When should you apply the antidotes towards laxity and excitements. Because if when you are able to focus your mind on object of meditations without any distractions and laxities, and it is not necessary that you have to apply antidotes towards it. When it occurs, and you have to notice as soon as it occurs, then one should begin to apply antidotes towards those two impediments.
다원아 띵에들 냐바 자시베만에 신거데 조모뇨 개체시베기 어느 거바센데 간데질에서 오여레서 나와이나 아소.
So then it talks about here now defining characteristic of laxity and excitement. So then here, what is the first? What is excitement? How do we define excitement? So therefore, it's an excitement is defined is in Asanga's compendium of knowledge.
딱 그바 간신에 낄레딜레스 그바 간신나 두비 세미 제스 주비 대차제 차도비 센 넘버 마셔와 데 세네제 바도 주비 레제노 시에송데 델라송 소도.
So then here it says, excitement is defined in Asanga's compendium of knowledge. What is excitement? Question. It is an unquiet state of mind considered as a derivative of attachment, which pursues pleasant object and act as an impediment to meditative serenity.
되지. 제다이나 가서 뉴모세데 세 마셔싱 바. 세디 고 마셔와 이바 마셔 싱에 지바 간시질라 일을 세비나 바제레서. 차비나.
So now, when speaking about the afflictions or the nyomong, the affliction or the nyomong is that the mind that actually, it actually one's mind is actually influenced by affections, then one's mind will become what we call it is unpacified state of mind. One's mind will become unpacified.
되지. 대체나 대가서 대케고 배 내가 정보를 녀모세데 맞추기만 캐치기만 가서 내식하도록서 써서 4년도 년에서라에데 사이 녀모에나 모두 제외돼 걸라 넘바 탕제네 고 탕제는 마셔와시 그래. 아니 네 녀모세데 델레 슈체한테는 고레레는 마셔와시 그래. 삼바 가제 롱로 저롱어데 미시어 송에테데 마셔와시에서라 그래.
So here now this is something that is very important to understand, that we actually remember discussing with you all during our teachings on Four Noble Truths previously, during one of my previous teachings. When one of the 6 root delusions occurs in one's mind, then this will undiscipline your entire doors of the body. It will undisciplined or unpacified, your entire, system of your body and mind. Whereas the one of the secondary 20 afflictions occur, then it has the intensity, the impact of this is not that as intense as the occurrence of the root delusions or the root afflictions. It can only function its own side, and it will not actually have a capacity of undisciplining the entire system of one's body and mind. So these are the difference between secondary afflictions and the root afflictions.
미바티 넘버 셀레송도 임바체 동바 미바네스 이유동 가서 이유동시 도바오 넘버 네 센 넘버 마시신 저 실러 초바데 대자지 차시 대세지 체세지 임베 유라시베 남반주 바오 셰레네 세미발라 네비 바도 줘바오 세미발라 네비 바도 주비 줘바오 손도 딱히 넘바 셰레 아니 가사 미바송 데레다 고아시 고바세 데 대송 문제 잡고.
So now the following paragraphs talks about the object, aspect, and the functions of our, excitements or goba. So here it says there are three aspects of these definitions. Its object is now it talks about the object. It says its object is an attractive, pleasant one. Okay. Then the next is subjective aspect. Subjective aspect is that your mind is unquiet and scattered outward. Then as it is a derivative of attachment, it engages its object with a sense of craving. Then it talks about its function. Then its function is to impede stabilization of your mind on its object.
되지. 봐도 줘 봐. 오지. 나 같이 줘거래서는 sen 나도 미발라 때봐나. 수라라서 봐 차비 거베 오메도 유대다라 sen 전시 이와시에 샤여샤 가서 샤되래서 제다 신의 라미신 대단 대이 온양 야양 때봐나 대단 때래 녀모 샤바이 유라 차비 타베 오메 장시에 손바 따로 손도.
So then here it says, when your attention is inwardly fixed upon its object, excitement which is attached to form, sound, and so on, pulls your attention helplessly towards this object and cause distractions. As it says in the Chandragomi's praise of confession, just as your focus on meditative serenity, directing your attention towards it again and again, the noose of reflection pulls your attention helplessly with the rope of attachment to object.
되지. 당가서 그게 된디도 고대버 세고라 가서 가제 냐바 자시베만도 수달로서 뭐 차병원게 아니 녀모데 영원게 타바데 영원게 미바데를 쇼네 아니 파쇼 미바시다를 주도 오래 세대를 가서 센세 따자 치자게 말와 강로 미바샤서들 사바 쇼한테 수제거를 해서는 급에 녀모이 제거를 세대.
So this is how the excitements impairs our meditative serenity. How it acts as impediment to our meditative serenity is because when one is paying attention inwardly and fixing your mind upon the object of your meditations, then the excitement, how this excitement really act as an impediment to our meditative concentration is because the excitement was actually helplessly, just pulls helplessly towards object of meditations, and it causes distractions. In other words, object and cause distractions.
야, 다 도지나오지. 원은 요모시 저 고네 세 미발이 젠도 인와시비 초와당 대전의 겨와를 미바 젠라 초와데 고바 인나시나 고바는 대체지 차시 인베 요모 젠지 고네 인와네 고바 미지 년년년시 나제 집이 생종 나이 인노 게이 미발을 초반에 게이 세도 생종 지르바 조에 So
then here it says it is excitement when there is a scattering in which other reflections distract your mind away from the object, or for that matter, when there is scattering towards other virtuous objects. So then it says reply, excitement is a derivative of attachment. So being distracted by other reflection is not excitement. Rather, it is a mental process of distraction, which is one of the 20 secondary reflections, scattering it towards virtuous object. Virtuous objects may involve any virtuous mind or the mental process. So not all scattering is excitement.
되게 대다 가르 초알의 고아인비 고바인비 처고 말에 초알의 계유지 팀여리 근데 고발은 대차인비 처그래 스케치들.
So all those mental, all the scatterings are not excitement. It's not excitement because excitement is something that is derivative of attachment. However, the scattering is not necessarily be derivative of attachment because there are scattering which are derivative of virtuous thought as well.
되지. 다 시원해. 다 고바디사. 다 시원해. 주 몸벌이 숑바 셰바양 주데. 에 예시 숑바당 네 미치고 어지. 내 체니라. 내 체니라다. 내 체니라 게비데 계속 봐. 자자다 이거 희를 줘셔도 답이 저거자.
이제 전시 치워다.
아.
이 남미시면의 샘다를 미
맞아다 이거 투도. 마다 마시 저도 세부 차이.
이게 점점래 무료의 교통을 당해 미키 점점 미시마가
맞는데도 대 체니라 강지죄 산템바 페모체 나네 유전라 초함메바 내신 세다네 메비 세무바시라 시완 더반 당원 데네 미리데 모발라네 시위 주송베 데니 소소와 인데 고레 바발레 소
So here it says the many translators render laxity of laxity or jingwa as slackness or the then shumba, which is the slackness. So it should not be construed as meaning discouragement, shumba. As for its definitions, most yogis among this snowy peak seems to consider laxity to be a lethargic state of mind that stays on its object of meditation without scattering elsewhere, but lacks the limpid clarity. So this is incorrect. For lethargy is said to cause laxity, so that the two are distinct, as suggested in Kamalashala's second stage of meditation.
되지. 당가서 들이지 타지 줘서래. 숑바이나 단다 시와이미 맞지. 시와이나 숑바이미 쳐도지 라고 해서래. 바 최최선해서래. 되지 되지. 당가서 강지 최지 폐체와 이게 아니 단다 시화생에 되라 민바샤비 거라 당세 슈체모 맹에게 모바질라세세 되는 거네. 지금 말해서도 되네 브리데 손도. 모바네 신위 주선데 세디 모바데 신화기 주레마도 그런 신화 뭐들 코마레 손에 가려는 데 drawing 거다.
So it says like that as for this definition, most yogis among the snowy peaks, which is the Tibetan master referring to the Tibetan scholars, it seems to consider laxity is to be the lethargic state of a mind that stays on its object of meditation without scattering elsewhere, but lacks limpid clarity. So this is incorrect. So here it says this is incorrect because for lethargy is said to cause laxity. So the two are distinct.
되지. 다 권에 봐발래지. 데라 게테 모바다 니지 뇌네 생신어 신도 도바 토나 레토나 시에숨비 시당 공제 레장 게테 모바다 니지 시원 뇨바 주비 녜위 뇨모바 가요 로에 뇨모바 주나 게네 나도 센 넘바 인와 Jeno, she Mubata Niji, Tu Senshina, Nangi Nayi to Sombi Shiro, Gunle Dile, Shiwa Yenye Nayi Ghost She Mejang, De She be Nayla, Gewayang, Joye, Numajan the Mangeso, also.
If being oppressed by lethargy and sleepiness, you see your mind become lax or in danger of laxity. Also, the sutra unraveling the intended meaning says, if there is laxity due to lethargy and sleepiness, or if you are affected by any secondary afflictions in meditative absorption, it is a case of internal mental distractions. This states that when your mind becomes lax due to lethargy and sleepiness, it is distracted inwardly. Asanga's Compendium of Knowledge also discusses laxity is in the context of the secondary affection of distractions, but the distraction, as he explained in many also the virtues, so it is not necessarily effective of lethargy, and then Asanga's Compendium of Knowledge says.
되게 된다 가르치고 와서는 몸보다 니 생애의 신화제 유주르마도 코로니데 신화가 가서 신화 말에스 몸보 생애의 뉴모리 뉴모 지세다 신화 생애들라 뉴모 생애의 기위 차이를 소도
원래 기타 좀체 engage 손만 되게 다도
몸보다 니의 몸보 생애의 아니 신화 말에스 니의 몸보니데 나게 신화제 유주르스 기타제 다 모발라 녀모지 차그레 녀모세네레 가사 단단히 것이 시에나요 단다 신화라 게이 차요 신화라 매겨와 이미쳐 로마데 매겨와 이미쳐 그면도 게이 차도와
정말에 정거에 니는 정말대로
신화라 게이 차는 좀 현지시 생기야 되는
노노노
이 단단데 단단데 녀시 때문에 교회 신화야 녀모체는 방에서 손도 아들이
So here the 정말 계획 차이야 비치 단다 뭐보다 니니라
뭐바니니 단지 크게 단지 벽에 뭐버지게 뭐바데 신화에서 나오러와
나오나
다 뭐바데 니니의 신화 말에 뭐바데 니니의 신화기 저래
계획 계획이 줄에서 와대다
저래서 타지지 다니바들 뭐발라 뉴모제도 송거래 아니 가사 신화라 뉴모제에 봐요 말에 기 차요
that's. So lethargy and sleepiness are not actually the laxity. It causes laxity, that doesn't mean it is a laxity, right? But so here is that the lethargy and sleepiness are the derivative of affections. However, this laxity is not necessarily be derivative of affections. There are also some laxities that are derivative of virtuous state of mind as well.
되지. 대나 못바네 손다 견레딜레 못바 간세나 데모게 차도비 센레스메로와 니데 녀모당 니 녀모바 탕제지 조시비 레제노 제송베 데모게 차시 르당 센 레당 센 지신 레스메로와 니데 저델레 못바 간세나 리조와 니당 세조와 니당 류 레스 메롱아니 더 산 레스 메롱아니 이노 제송베시르 신화네 제송소 신화네 소도
So now here it talks about the Sangha's Compendium of Knowledge says Sangha's Compendium of Knowledge, for defining the lethargy, where it says, what is lethargy? It says unserviceable state of mind classified as a derivative of delusion. It works to assist all root afflictions and secondary afflictions. So this derivative of delusion is the heaviness and unserviceability of the body and mind. Vasubandhu's Treasure of Knowledge, auto commentary, Abhidhamma Kosha Bashaya says, what is lethargy? The heaviness of the body and the heaviness of the mind, which are the unserviceability of the body and unserviceability of the mind.
되지. 당어서 띠무세 가서 무바생인데 띠무기 차도 임바 타지지. 임바 간시절로 그 녀모 간데지제소나 띠무기 저 띠무세데 그 다제라데 말이 그 메시비기 로 슈치와데. 메시바데 그 간데 녀모 간데지제소나 메시비용기 로데 슈치버와.
So here now, what it says is now lethargy is definitely, derivative of delusion. It's in fact in the Tibetan words, what it says is derivative of ignorance. So it becomes, it actually assists all kind of affections, including root affections and secondary affections. So therefore, there is no such lethargy that can be a virtuous state of mind.
되지. 되게 가서 제 받다다 띠무세데 민코로 된데다가 다체데 나타다 되면 딩 사보게 메시메서르지. 간제 리 제고 사보로 저거를 생 제고 저거를 리 레서 뭐로 저거를 생 레서 뭐로 저거를 소도. So
here it is timuk, which is ignorance. So it is because of that, the lethargy and unserviceability state of mind classified as a derivative of delusion. It works to asset all root affections and secondary affections. It also, unserviceability of the body and mind.
데 셰송소지 다시와 네지 센지 미바 짐빈 진당 르네 미바 신의 세왕 담바 민진바 임베 당차 예장 미빈 진당 신의 세왕 매바네 시완로데 오래 바발레 관계체 민로 관계체에서 민로 따본 미 가서 미바 슈바 따본 미 좀바 따본 센제 미바 세와 메통와 데이체 시완주와 지바 샤오 시에송베 쇼로 존체와 제네 시미 체니 세와 세와 좀 마통어 손도.
So what is lethargy? The heaviness of the body and the heaviness of the mind, which are the unserviceability of the body and unserviceability of minds. Laxity means that your mind's way of apprehending the object of meditation is slack, and it does not apprehend an object with much vividness or firmness. So even if it is limpid, if your mind's way of apprehending the object is not highly vivid, then laxity has set in. Kamalachila's second stage of meditation states, when your mind does not see the object vividly, like a person born blind, or the person entering a dark place, or like a having one's eyes shut, then recognize that your mind has become lax. So I have not seen the clear presentation on the definition of laxity in the other classic texts.
네. 당가 저기 봐 당에 되지 당에서 산다 신화도 저다 타고 쉬우지도 신화들 레와라 인심이지 진단 세보 매보를 차고면도 로를 당체면 니가 차고면도 진단 신라 나명에 세차를 신다 나명에 요비거라 니 신화 처모대 그랬어요 신화 처모도 강 놓고서요 진짜 때려도
So it is very difficult to really identify the laxity. When we were engaging in meditations, unlike this mental excitement, the laxity is something that is very, very, it is kind of like act. It doesn't really, when the laxity comes, it doesn't really necessarily that you are unable to have a vivid, you will not be able to have it is not that something that you will not be able to have your vivid object of your meditations. Even though there is a vivid object of meditations, your object of meditation is still limpid and clear, but still there is a possibility of this laxity is taking place and it is interrupting your meditations. It's a very hard to define or identify the mental laxity. Moreover, there are a subtlety of the mental laxities, and especially the subtle mental laxities are very hard to identify.
Gane sen sen to go ba sombe sen la mi pa pa ba ta bi re yi me se wa tang lo yin zin tang pang ma de son na ka ne mi pa se wa tang zin tang jin cha ni cha go je yi jian se wa zang dang ma re yi se wa zang da yi jian dang cha zang ju me cho ko goba riba tang kasa goba ri lawa tang xinwa kunre kontu bi jung chewa nang ne sewa ngo mazo wa sheka wa nang xin shindo yang ge chewa nang de de la tengen de jeme de chusa chewa nang yi shiro de yi shiro lo shimo nyanyong ge tenne gongren de somba ta leba ta la ngo semba shawo wo se ta ji je de这帮多呢光是家位这超不多
So the laxity may be virtuous or laxity may be virtuous or ethically neutral, whereas lethargy is either a non-virtuous or ethically neutral mental obstructions. So, and it is invariably derivative of delusions. Moreover, the classic texts say that to dispel laxity, you must bring to mind pleasant object such as the body of Buddha, or meditate on light so as to stimulate your mind. Therefore, you have to stop the object from appearing unclearly as though the darkness were descending on your mind. And you have to put an end to the quality of attention which has become flaccid. You need both a clear object of meditation and a tight way of apprehending the objects. Neither a clear object one nor a transparency of the subject alone is enough. It is easy to recognize excitement, but laxity is hard to comprehend since it is not clearly defined in the authoritative classic texts. It is also very important because it is, in this case, it is a major point of misunderstanding concerning flawless concentrations. Therefore, you should experience laxity within exacting awareness, and on that basis, examine it will and identify it in accordance with the Kamalashila stages of meditation. Take a 10 minutes break.
지당 어쩌대 강 접이 내거서라 너 그거 천하게 냥을 해 비거라 아니 가서로 메바 로라지 미나 여바 가셔라 미나 세보 메비 가던다 양 로기 제당데마 현차레 비고 드네레 비고라 아니 다 시마레 비게 쥐지 통고여도
这说话什么叫现在送呗？
对多落了米包婆婆大不落没些往前当胖马的都比高了你搞啥喜欢的那比大着之类的
没错，
嘛都别对这当效果么多
没错。So when the laxity occurs, it is not necessarily you completely lose your object of meditations. Your apprehension of your, object of meditation, it is not necessarily it will be lost completely. Although there's still, you will still be able to, you will still be able to engage your meditative, focus your meditatively on the object of meditations, and there's still, that doesn't mean that your meditation is not actually influenced by the mental laxity.
对，现在我说落的米包婆比高了头，记得的我刚过要大多我说这你们要到我当你准备个设想的我的这个没把结果要多
So when this, when it says now, when the laxity is about to, when the laxity is, occurring in one's mind, then in order to overcome such laxity, then it is suggested to meditate on, choosing the very bright light as one's object of meditation and so on.
对的，我说落可是娘买的着的一个落树用别点的啦，那这些是别大商家一不送都现在这样着的，看就落了多少节的了嘛，娘嘛不这个了，落了新的节，那新的呢别的胖通不没叫呢，没叫节，现当的吃娘本之后，你样本着我记得下个送的话，但都是娘牛可能让人从那么是高考也送的话。
So it's just like so just in order to dispel these laxities, so you must bring to your mind the pleasant objects such as body of Buddha or the meditation on the light to stimulate your mind. So therefore, it is not it's not. It is again very important. It is not easy for us to really to identify the occurrence of laxity during one's meditations.
对，我说娘说的，我说的刚讲的meditation start嘛，都刚讲的那个早早学的嘛，就那的已经写完当的一嘛的一写完当的一切当前要当的没效果送的啊。这我说不，别的哪里都能刚讲的经说呢，那都是把这样的嘛都年个清不了啊。但我说当的容易这些都已经都效果了。
So it is always, suggested to have experiential knowledge, how the liturgy occurs, how to one applies antidotes towards the liturgy and so forth. The mental laxity. Otherwise, just by looking at and following the text and reading the text alone will not really give us experiential knowledge, because it also said that even though that just having a clarity of subjective mind and the clarity of objective meditative object of meditation alone will not guarantee your flawless meditative concentration, the practice of flawless meditative concentration.
对些，这等于是专门的出色气效应说的啊，我说是吧？等于的说一点刚讲的，当然等于是专门的那的有上百张就出现在那这个么多啊，出色气效应呗，你开始说的，第一些的老学们娘牛给点呢，国内的说嘛的也不大的我是把小我说的娘牛头的我这阶级嘛都现在那这阶级人么多啊。
So yes, it is easy to recognize excitement, but laxity is hard to comprehend since it is clearly identified in it is not clearly identified in the authoritative classic texts. It is also very important because in this case it is a major point of misunderstanding. So which is clearly mentioned here, major point of misunderstanding concerning flawless concentrations. Therefore, you should experience laxity with an exacting awareness, and on that basis, examine it well and identify it accordance with Kamalishta stages meditations.
신교 도비 시신집이 신교 도비 시신집이 터네 시원도 그거 해송세네 이 시신집이 터디 가르쳐서 나와야네서 시집이 터네.
So then next it talks about the method for developing a vigilance that recognize laxity and excitement.
대중 가서 희생에 대해 가서 police 소리지 따지쟁이 소리지 자세 소리대로 와. 다 그따고로 신교 연구도.
So the vigilance or the meta-awareness, sometimes it is also translated meta-awareness or the introspection, is something that really spies on the laxity and excitement.
터네지 신교적 고아 유여받상지 매초게 공비잖아 신교 쇼마저 제타와지 시비 시시제 두것이 거서 스를 데레 대그 문에.
So here now it says, it is not enough just to have an understanding of laxity and excitement. You have to be able to develop vigilance that accurately detects whether the laxity or excitement is present during meditation.
되지. 대양사 시제 떠데 제비 말에 시제 떠데 린지 제비 신교 중에 대마타도 된 것은 시제 제 투바 따주면 무슨 맞제바 제비 더셔바나 리비 시제 제 거대 고는 시만 일에 생신은 신도 도바 토나 시당 생 거방 good 도바 토나 시송비 싫어 대다 시제 맞제 시제 시 맞제 봐도 데 데이 봐라 신경매비 강 주면어 좀매 말에 주면 종어시 타 제장 되도 면도대 신경 쇼야 니바미니 세대 시제 답데 맞제 비셔로 대다양 유탈에 손도대.
So moreover, by gradually developing powerful vigilance, not only must you develop vigilance that recognize laxity and excitement as soon as they occur, you must also develop a vigilance that recognize them when they are on the verge of occurring, before they have actually arisen. It says. This is demonstrated by the statement in the Kamalashila's last two stages of meditations. If you see your mind become lax or in danger of laxity, and you see your mind become excited or in danger of becoming excited, until you develop such vigilance, you cannot reliably conclude that you have had flawless meditation free of laxity and excitement during a given period of time. This is because not having developed powerful vigilance, you cannot be sure whether laxity and excitements have occurred. Likewise, in the passage that begins, there is recognition of laxity and excitement, much as separation of the middle from the extreme says.
되지. 되게 단다 가르치 버서나 나머저 시행이 따지 전에 대비 거라. 아니 신경 쇼마타도 뭐 생각다 시험 거 바로 왔어. 신경 쇼도 제디 니보 대토하지 거래세데. 근데 고래 봐봐 심한이 이동되기 단다 되지.
So here now what it says is now not only that it's important for one to apply an antidote or the remedy towards this laxity and excitements during one's meditation when such, obscuration occurs, but also important to really to be vigilant about when those laxity and mental excitements are on the verge of occurrence. So before its occurrence, it's about the occurrence of the laxity and mental excitements, one should really to identify it and understand and ready to apply antidotes towards this. So it says, until you develop a vigilance, perfect vigilance, in other words, you cannot reliably conclude that you have had a flawless meditation free of laxity and excitement during a given period of time. So the Macha's separation of the middle from the extreme says that you need vigilance in order to recognize laxity and excitements. Accordingly, if you have not developed vigilance such as would preclude any failure to recognize that the presence of laxity or excitement, then even if you try to meditate on for a long time, you will pass the time under the influence of subtle laxity and excitements, failing to sense laxity and excitement while they are occurring. So if one is unable to follow the texts, the teachings precisely, unmistakenly, in conjunction with meditations, then this subtle excitement and subtle laxity will influence your meditations. Then how long that you are able to how much are you able to prolong your meditation session, you're actually wasting one is actually wasting one's time, because one's meditation is remaining under the influence of laxity and excitement. It's not. There might be in some case, it is mere possibility that an individual may be able to engage in meditations flawlessly without going through a rigorous studies of the classic texts. It is because of their previous imprints, the positive imprints, or the propensities he or she may has from his or her previous life. However, if you really look at it in reality, and if you really look at it, I think very carefully, without undergoing a rigorous practice and study, it is almost impossible, like us as ordinary beings, It's not possible for one to really to perfect one's practice of meditations. As I mentioned during my previous teachings, even a Gishi who has gone through a rigorous studies of the teachings of the classic text for a long period of time and become himself as a Gishi, and still when he engages in the practice of meditations for a very long period of time, even able to prolong his meditation session for a very long time, but even then he is still later on he noticed that his practice of meditation was under the influence of laxity and excitement.
Sanjay Salon Senate, Loy Kongshi, Yawajiga, when the Hina Chimbojipa gave go on the time. Mason over the Sugi Pong, the Shanchu Santa, Tendri, Niji said the dead, Panka when the cases said dead, so the Shina, the Jin Zumudo, and the time. Ichimiji Shina the Pazine, Shina the Pagego.
So here now, if we were to cross the ocean of samsara to get the state of enlightenment, it is analogous to someone who was willing to cross the thick jungle, by walking, and to get the other part of the jungle, other part of the place by crossing the thick jungle. So for that, just mere remaining in a very beautiful place without entering into the jungle and remaining in a place where it is so pleasant, and talk something that is very beautiful, and enjoying that part, enjoying your staying in that place, and talking about crossing the jungle without entering into it is not going to help us. Just like that, we are now not just really entering ourselves into the actual practice, but really engaging in the dialogue of meditation of bodhicitta, law of compassion, and so on, will not be able to enter into the door of the enlightenment.
Hatembi Jembi Jondu de Juke Chishu Yinde Deta Tremba Jun de Pate Jenina Mipa Jene Yeten Roa Gaba Ne Be Shinke Jaba Yurimbo Mesoa Dobe Shinke Tohai Shede Jamba Nyambi Tiju Shinke Ripa Dang Manyam Bituji Shinke Ripa Du Rinto Ni Nyong la Gone Tena Chi Se Lo Sondo. Tela Gone Shunjule Sondo Alejang.
So then here's a question: how do you develop this vigilance? Apply. Its most important cause is the process of maintaining mindfulness, which I explained above. If you can develop continual mindfulness, you will be able to avoid forgetting object meditation and becoming distracted. That since this prevents a prolonged failure to sense the presence of laxity and excitement, you can easily recognize laxity and excitement. This will be perfectly evident if you examine in terms of your own experience how long it takes to recognize laxity and excitement when mindfulness is impaired, and how quickly you recognize them when it is not impaired. With this in mind, Shantideva was engaging in the Bodhisattva states.
Jumpa Jindu Chonglu Losiji in Shizetian Chiki Yomanes. Karisana, Jumpa Jinde the Jetuguyana, and Mipa Jedo said the Yomade, the got to us. Any Nai Jumpa the Shingo the Shi Yumba Dea, Jumpa Tenduana Hako us. In the Jumpa Betinane, any Messing Jida, Jumpa Manane, Jumpa Niboteda, not so Nyanyu don't Hako do us on it.
So then it clearly explained that that since this prevents a long failure to sense in a sense the presence of laxity and excitement, you can easily recognize laxity and excitement. This will be perfectly evident if you examine it in terms of your own experiences, how long it takes to recognize laxity and excitement when mindfulness is impaired, and how quickly you recognize them when it is not impaired within this mind. So what it actually emphasizes here is to really to apply a mindfulness. Mindful application of mindfulness is something that is very important. So it's always, reminding oneself, be mindful of what kind of meditation one is doing. Be mindful, one should maintain one's mindfulness of object that is chosen for one's mindfulness. Otherwise, we will forget it. If one is unable to remind oneself of object of meditation, then one will forget the object of meditation. Shantideva was engaging in the Bodhisattva state states. When mindfulness dwells at the gate of your mind, for its protection, then vigilance will appear. And and also uh, uh, Citramati's explanation of the separation of the middle from the extreme states. The statement there is recognition of laxity and excitement by vigilance. If mindfulness does not lapse, indicates that the mindfulness, when full present, is accompanied by the vigilance. That's why it says, if mindfulness does not lapse, the following cause of vigilance is distinctive. It's a distinctive to the way to maintain vigilance. Focus your mind on the visualized image of body, of deity, etc., or focus on a subjective aspect, such as the quality of experience being simply luminous and aware. Then, while you stay mindful, as explained above, hold your attention on the object while continuously monitoring whether it is scattering elsewhere. Elsewhere. Know that this is critical for the maintenance of vigilance, as Shantideva was engaging in the Bodhisattva state says. So the distinctive here says the following the cause of vigilance is a distinctive to the way to maintain vigilance. Focus your mind on the visualized image of the body of the deity or any object of meditation, so it says, or focus on the objective aspect, such as the quality of experience being simply luminous and aware. Then while you are staying mindful, as explained above, then hold your attention on the object while continuously monitoring whether it is scattering elsewhere. So you are actually, on the one hand, you are actually meditating or single-pointedly on the object of meditations. On the other hand, there is a one aspect which is actually monitoring, or to be able to detect, if we're ready to detect whether if there is an occurrence of if by chance there is an occurrence of mental laxity and excitement.
宣就来去，你当三级那个了，样的大下哇，这点困难多难呢？先送为参与到先送吧大罗，这呢，这呢先给这边找些吧呢，这边先接了，真把电器今年一年多一节年，我把一边来把米些话西告诉我，这到满意吧，落点呢。 长期记等着呢，密切于国外吧，第三中华现在讲呢，就通的รูป这不定人在电视上用到个啥，用的多少送的。
So engaging in the Bodhisattva deed says, examine again and again the state of body and mind. Just that, in brief, is what is meant to prevent vigilance. So to preserve vigilance, sorry. Thus, with this method, you develop vigilance that notice laxity and excitement when they are on the verge of arising. While with the method for maintaining mindfulness, you prevent forgetfulness in which attention is distracted and slip away. Hence, you have to properly distinguish these two. Otherwise, if you practice as it is done nowadays, combining all this awareness with no understanding of third distinctions, I'm afraid that the concentration resulting from a muddled cause will itself be muddled. Therefore, it is very important to make a very precise analysis of this in accordance with each of the major authoritative texts, and then to determine it in your practice. Do not place your hopes on sheer determination for this area. Ayasura's compendium of the perfection says.
就是我这的，他一动作着的修就那天现在那天的送的修一下个的，我从这个跟那刚这边那个是了，像这这边搞了，说吧说这几个，真把这几跟那送么修一下个嘛都，我刚刚娘多简单，这样面的就差别搞了，给用过嘛的，第三个刚那个差个的，第三中华那个差个的，第三个讲的都是了。 现在觉得他的头了嘛都吃上就要嘛的，就他的头了吃上就没了，这不样他的头了就嘛都吃上就用嘛的送的。
So here nowadays it's called talks of his Kamatsangpa stated that someone who is claiming to be engaging in practice of meditative serenity, which actually lacks the cause of meditative serenities. It is somewhat, it says, it's just that's what it says. I'm afraid that the concentration result from the muddled cause will itself be muddled. So therefore, it's very important for us to understand when one is engaging the practice of meditative serenity, while focusing one's mind on the object of meditations on one hand, on the other hand, one should be able to detect. There should be one aspect of the subjective mind that can detect the occurrence of the laxity and excitement, which is very, very important.
这些，但都是我做两个周期通过，但你也是要那个，这个新旧的要不之间呢，这段就忙着呢，现在呢怕只有很多就过来就得说的掐住了，怕现在得头嘛了。
So then although that one has a desire to cross the thick jungle to the other part of the place, but then without having a proper analysis and proper understanding of how do you cross this thick jungle, without having a precise knowledge of how to cross this thick jungle, then you will stuck in the jungle without being able to free yourself from crossing the jungle and getting to the other shore of the place.
Kora kasi jana da langa pa che yo mare kasi kora jana daji yosa chile de kale shu kai ja
So
rang cha do
one will keep on, revolving within one footpath without finding a right path to get out of the thick jungle.
de na ji yong ku du chemo re dang tin de xin de xi bi nang xue ji xie ne nyang ne ji de la pe ba xi xin de ge che wa yin ni ri zang le je wa me sha de pa xin de ba le zun ri ji de xie ba nge wi ta xie ro zhu ji jiang ne duan qian zhu jie song bi xiao ro de re de ji rong ji de ri de si de de na se la bu ga la ji se de xia na se ne yong ge dong to de jia you go la be be ge yong lo de jian yin qi de yuan de xie.
So I'm afraid that concentration resulting from the model cause itself will be model. Therefore, it is very important to make a very precise analysis of this in accordance with each of major authoritative texts, and then to determine it in your practice. You do not place your hope on sheer determinations for asuras, Ayasuras, a compendium of the perfection says, using only joyous perseverance, you will end up exhausted. If you practice with the aid of wisdom, you will achieve the great goal.
Yeah, de la ja de ya bu shui jin do a, ro ba. Yong Chenmo ge ce den ji le den na xue pe je dong ne nyang ne je ge de ma do wu zu ji guo le de wa ma jie es. Ge de de pa xi de ba sa de zun zhi ji guo nian yi ta ji guo le ta jie ma xia di nyang do le xi le ji zhuo jiang wa jie na dian da qi mo tian ge le so do a. De ga ri na de wa ro dian da.
So it is very important, right? Not only just having a joyous perseverance is adequate, but you will also have, along with the joyous perseverance, you also have a wisdom that accompany your joyous perseverance. So in this way, you'll be able to achieve the result. But without which, even though that you may have a perseverance, but with the lack of wisdom, there's no way that one can achieve the result.
de ka de ten ji sha wa yin na da re nyang ga de ji ma da ji wu zu zhong zhong jiang de na ka le kan ma do zhe bu tuan ge ma do nyang ga de xie song be ga la xie ro gi zhuo le be ga la de zhong ji ga le me nge ge zhe bu tuan yuan ji ro.
So wisdom and intellect or the intelligence is needed. Just mere having putting an effort, rigorous effort alone is not enough. We need to have it applies not only to the practice of Dharma, but it's also mundane activities as well.
De ji ta ni ba ngo se ne ta xin ge ngo se ne kan de bang gu se na ni ba ngo se ne de bang bi xie de me zhen bi nian bo den ba se de nga zo ni bo de me xie bi nian ba se de re ding yin ji zhen me de ma de xie ge he na ni bo de me xie ba de la ding yin ji ga sa nian ba chi chao ge ya de nian ba de re. 电把年纪，那些把它全把它写进中路，来把写呢，这些新的到当点把接的，选个新的朝阳，写进就是把那边选个什么我们这边就没讲，等你有嘛他都过吧，过吧做了没点吧。当的那边没这把人没这把人，对没些把的定义就全新的就话赢的。这大些呢，老人都说呢，性格当这个定义的，就把新的可以学了，说的。ale shiro dena shinge jwa pa re shinge jwa pa wala du me shi bi nie bo du shi ba won zo xie da bi sen gang ba xiao de la ni so do.
So using the remedy for failing to try to eliminate them even when they are recognized. As explained above, you develop very powerful mindfulness and vigilance, and through proper use of methods for maintaining mindfulness and vigilance. Vigilance is then able to notice even very subtle laxity and excitement. So there is no problem recognizing the occurrence of laxity and excitement. However, when you make no occurrence of laxity and when you make no effort to stop those two, as soon as they arise, your compliancy or the failure to apply yourself constitute as an extremely serious problem for your concentration. For if you practice it in this way, your mind will form bad habits, and then it will be extremely difficult to develop a concentration free of laxity and excitement. Therefore, to remedy a failure to apply yourself to the elimination of laxity and excitement, cultivate the intention called application or efforts. This section has two parts.
되지. 땅가서 도서래. 띵에 전바다데 유비가다 고 시원도 그바 가리는 리 데보여래. 아니 뭐 무슨 비자요 말해서. 다때 된지기 신거 창원도 시원 유비 고 상반나 대 메요비 타시메저 쯤에도 가서 남에도 동샤와이나 아니 롤랑도 손에 그바도 띵에 신데 제가서 내가서 로드 콤비제선 도와인자네 된주에는 샤샤와이나 네 띵에 제가 신데 카와요리 인지미지 숑와도 리마타도 까고 써야 되지 잔다.
So here it says, as soon as one should always remember that as soon as that one recognizes or notice there is a occurrence of the laxity and excitement, then one should immediately, without second thought, immediately apply an antidote towards that. Otherwise, if you just live aside and take it very lightly, then this will become a habit, and then will become a very problematic for one's meditations.
되지. 가서게 세그러와. 제단에 하러와. 그런 자도데 나는 말해거나 까그르마도 말해거나 까그르마도 나는 제사송나 되는 카보레스에죠. 되래.
It's just like before the enemy enters into one's territory, one must prevent one should do whatever one can to prevent that enemy to enter into one's territory. Once they enter into one's territory, then it will become problematic.
Semba Kanshe na Sen Ngoban Dusheba Yiji Lede Gawata Migawa Long to Matemba Nala Sen Juba Shibi Legeno She Sumba Ta Sheba Shao Deyan Pena Do Kanleji Onge Jaran Meba Yoata Sen Get Mege Lomate Sum Kanto Yoa Re Kanola Yoshi Kuwa Shibi Senjune Samba Yimbe, Dede, Shingo Kanron Shumana, Tepamba, Sengoban Dishibi, Samba Zongo, also Wana.
So this section has two parts. Into the intention, the first intention, and the way that stops laxity and excitements. And second, the underlying cause of laxity and excitements. Intention in the way it stops laxity and excitements, Asanga's compendium of knowledge. What is intention? It is the mental activities of applying your mind, having the function of drawing your mind to virtue, non-virtue, or ethically nurture. This is how you should understand it. For example, iron filings are compelled to move under the influence of the magnet. Similarly, the mental process of intention moves and stimulates your mind towards virtue, non-virtue, or ethical and neutral. So it is here refers to an intention that applies your mind to elimination of laxity and excitement when one of them occurs.
对我做的话，别人这些是的，那个经验的事的，是感觉当然的事的，写不的事的，那我就老话呢，别人我做生就什么就比些生是的，别人给每个生看的经验说呢，生把这个干嘛当呢？你那个的经验就了啊，我说你写不我这边说的这个是，但呢，你把这些吧，生把这些吧是个生的看的是老说呢，你生的感觉当然。So
it is now we are actually identifying the agent which enables us to move. For instance, when the agents, for instance, one's mind is it acts as an agent to really instruct us to do whether engage in certain actions, whether it is virtuous or non-virtuous or the neutral actions. It is an agent which is the mind, act as an agent and order us or instruct us to do so. And so then we follow that instructions, and then we're going through that and following the instructions given by the agent.
Senju Sambas Judy, Linga Kondo, you got to be Senju Chilla, Senju Sambas in it. The Niki Chiva Kanje, Chivamadu, Linga is a Kangi, Cuba, Casa, Yon, Cuba singing, Senjula, Laudua, Lichi, then the Senju Chi. Wana, Teta Shingu Bawana, Sengoba, Gune, Shingun Gutsi, Jendashi, Janas. Della Saint Shiwan Ne, so Tanji, Saint Kumat and the Tongwana, one not to do his Saint in the Shigomu Karango with the Lava in Asa.
So then the question after you have thus aroused your mind to eliminate laxity and excitement, how do we stop laxity and excitement? And in what manner and what kind of method and skillful means that can really stop laxity and excitement?
Because Janachi, Della Saint Shiwan Ne, so Ha Jang now the Dutane, Mipan Zinta Showa Yimbe, Telane, Saint Shula Toy Jujuba, Gai Mobo Yila Shade, Tene, Sanjuku Shindo, Zebataba Yinji, Numojibi Gawa, Meno Achi, Yana, and New Yola Subi, Noi Sama Yila Sheba, and Shiwa Sambana. Dematadu, Miban Zinta Tamba Shaba, Jamde, Goni Tombo Le, Sondo.
So reply, the mental laxity involves a very excessive inward withdrawal leading to a slippage in a way you apprehend the object of meditation. So you should direct your mind to delightful things that cause it to expand outward. So this should be something like a very beautiful image of Buddha, not something delightful that give rise to afflictions, or bring to a mind an image of light, such as sunlight. When this clears away laxity, immediately tighten the way you apprehend the object, and then sustain that in meditations, as Kamala Shila's first stages of meditation explains.
Also, since she wants to help you call a Karichana, Hacha not do trouble, she wanted to help you, Zeta the show you don't know, who to tell the day to Metandua. That's a Koyong number Chishaguesha, she want my leg than that. Then do you Koyong new show by Yimbe, and Saint de la Shilla Trovi go do, sell not do just the David color, she want to help you. Want to go on Kari in the pursuit of a David color, Sabatio making it. Then again, Sabashilla try them to have to try my invited, and the Sanjay Kuzula maybe get to watch it down. Now that you virgin heart of the Yumi, Martin, say a simple the same troubles of good. Didn't Tamata to enjoy good.
So what this particular paragraph emphasizes that, one should not, excessively withdraw one's mind inward or putting a lot of effort in order to withdraw one's mind inward. So this is again not a appropriate. It is not a right approach of one's meditations, because it's clearly mentioned that mental laxity involves a very excessive inward withdrawal, leading to a slippage in the way to apprehend the object of meditation. So you should then direct your mind, if this happens, then so you should then direct your mind to the delightful things that cause it to expand outward again here. And this should be something like a beautiful image of the Buddha, or not something delivered that give rise to again affections, or bring to a mind an image of light.
야, 다 자기 대리 때문에 이게 같이 만들어 줬어 맞어. 야, 당고서 대자 아니. 다 대자는 선다. 다 가서 가르치는 자고서는 다 자고는 자바 전주전에 통화면 받다나 버려 자저저 해 봐라. 나네진 믿도. 다 자바들 자비 창지전에 때다는 와서 뒤손도 사비 교환의 쇼지도 담에 돌아다네. 내랑에 선제 다지게 줄을 상추 생기 생비토네. 내 신나게 하던 내랑지를 전에 내랑신 다지电的调主体过去，最近的下午先年吧，那边的这个，那么特别我们呢，让给春节再一浪，我就让我们去不了都说是了，那忙的忙了你们觉得
Let's do our dedication prayers by means of accumulation of mirrors, three times of one's own and that of other beings, and by means of such accumulation mirrors of that of myself and other beings, may I be able to, generate or actualize this calm abiding and special insight derived from the cultivation of bodhicitta, to gain the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. May all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and my root gurus please bless me to be able to do this.
那达那当着我们就接，刚才的把着了就是。之前着了这么的月子，昨天那就到处出席，这些将子修根教就接，就是那面国菜上的，那么真的说真结果。罗桑对别人民所宗，若也民生大多年久节，帮助老人过于辛劳。偏当的我们临终也能心人在行的人家族，小别身体临终节，长辈抱怨着大情波动。更多总部电影的钱得到根据解释道路，给我得到统计劳动，给送西边叫我统计，我工作就多我到现个月早晚就给总部学习劳动。啊呀，对不起，Thank you。
Thank you.